If you could choose a monument to your memory, would it be carved in stone or carried forward by the people who live it? You're listening to Torah in 7, a podcast where we examine one idea from the weekly Torah reading in 7 minutes. I'm Bela Olidort. This week, the book of Exodus comes to an end. The final 2 chapters, Vayakhel and Pikudei, mostly repeat the technical details of building the Mishkan. But instead of focusing on these details, I want to zoom out and look at the arc of the book of Shemot and notice where the people are when it opens and where they stand when it closes. The book of Shemot begins and ends with the Jewish people engaged in large national construction projects. But the similarity ends there. What they build at the beginning and what they create at the end reflect 2 completely different ways of living in the world and 2 completely different kinds of legacy. At the beginning of the book, the people are slaves. We see the Israelites hauling mud bricks by the thousands, building the storage cities of Pitom and Ramses, centers of Egypt's surplus inventory and imperial expansion. At the end, the people are free. We see them weaving, embroidering, designing, and engineering the Mishkan, a portable sanctuary that will travel with them through the desert. At the beginning, the slaves are forced into avodat perech, crushing labor under the whip. At the end, the people come forward of their own free will with nediv lev, a generosity of spirit, and with chochmat lev, inspired hearts. In that sense, the Mishkan is the repair of a crushed spirit. After years of forced labor, the Jews are finally building from their heart's desire. Their project is the opposite of Paro's. In Egypt, they built immovable structures meant to stand forever. Now, as a free people, they build a sanctuary designed to be taken apart and carried with them. And in that design lies a profound lesson. God is teaching a newly freed people a radical idea. Don't confuse holiness with permanent structures. They're coming out of a civilization obsessed with permanence, pyramids, monuments, structures meant to defy time. But holiness doesn't reside in physical matter. It lives in the spiritual life that animates it. Now let's look more closely at the thinking behind this construction project. In the very first verse of Parshat Pikudei, we find a hidden play on words when the word Mishkan is repeated twice. The verse reads, Ele Pikudei HaMishkan, Mishkan HaEdut, and Rashi quotes the Midrash, explaining that this hints to the word mashkon, collateral. The Midrash says that the sanctuary was taken as collateral, as a mashkon for the sins of the Jewish people. So from the beginning it was clear that the Mishkan, which would later become the temple in Jerusalem, might not stand forever. If the people failed to uphold the covenant, the mashkon, the collateral, would be seized. But the covenant itself would remain. Now, twice in history, the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed. The collateral was lost, but the covenant remained. Time and again, the Jewish people lost their homeland, exiled to Babylon and Rome, persecuted and left homeless by the Crusades, the Inquisition, the pogroms, and the Holocaust. And yet, here we are today, descendants of our ancient forebears, with our covenant, the Torah, still in place. Because our Mishkan, which, by the way, shares the same root as the word Shekhinah, the divine presence, doesn't depend on a fixed structure. It's something we carry with us. The Talmud says that after the destruction of the temple, God dwells in the 4 cubits of halakha, in other words, in Torah, a home you could fold up and carry that no empire could confiscate. When we forget this, we face the tragedy of someone like the Austrian Jewish writer Stefan Zweig, one of the most famous and widely translated authors in the 1920s and 30s. Zweig had the prestige, the status, and inventory of European culture, but he realized too late that they were all made of stone that could be seized. His tragedy was that he tied his identity to a geography that no longer wanted him. In his memoir, The World of Yesterday, which he wrote in exile, he describes that world with aching beauty because he was watching it disappear. When the Anschluss came and the books were burned, Zweig was destroyed. His tragedy was philosophical. He had invested his soul in the walls, and when the walls fell, he felt he had nothing left. He didn't see what Jewish history had already learned. The walls were never the homeland. The 19th century German Jewish poet Heinrich Heine noticed this. He once called the Torah the portable fatherland of the Jews. And I mention it because it's a striking phrase coming from Heine, who had himself baptized to gain entry to European culture. But that didn't really work out very well for him, because to the Germans, he remained a Jew, and to himself, he remained bound to the Jewish people. In fact, later he wrote, "I make no secret of my Judaism, to which I never returned because I never left it." In a way, Heine was rediscovering the lesson of the Mishkan, our answer to the question of permanence. Paro tried to solve it by stopping time. In his obsession with permanence, he treated living souls as fuel for dead stones. And look at where the civilization of ancient Egypt is today. All that remains are pyramids, massive, silent temples and tombs, empty monuments to death. The Torah offered the opposite vision, not a people anchored to stone monuments, but one carrying a portable sanctuary wherever history would take them. And that's how the book of Shemot ends, with willing hearts, creative spirits, a cloud that rises, and a free people moving forward in covenant with God. For someone like myself who enjoys beautiful interiors, the feel of rich textures and colors, the book of Shemot is a lesson in balance. Because the Mishkan was created with beautiful materials, vibrant pigments, and fine workmanship by skilled craftspeople. The Torah doesn't dismiss this. But in making it portable, in reminding us that the Mishkan is a mashkon that can be taken apart and even taken away altogether, it reminds me that no matter how beautiful, it's not where my investment in permanence should be made. If identity is tied to material matter, nothing remains when we're gone. But if our inventory is our relationships with each other and with our covenant, it endures through the generations. Next week, we begin reading the book of Leviticus. I'll take a break and look forward to returning when we start the book of Numbers, Sefer Bamidbar. In the meantime, stay well. Shabbat Shalom.